Hello YouTube, this is just another guy talking about stuff, and the ongoing series that examines episode by episode the greatest television series of all time, Community. Don't forget to give the video a like, and do all the rest of the YouTube things, like subscribing, clicking the bell icon, and commenting if you feel so inclined. The sixth episode of Community, titled Football, Feminism and You, aired on October 22nd, 2009, bringing in 5.18 million viewers to NBC at 8 p.m. that night. If you've been following this YouTube series, then you know that Football, Feminism and You was meant to air earlier in the season. According to Wikipedia, it was originally supposed to air as the third episode in between Spanish 101 and Intro to Film. Dan Harmon and the cast do mention in the DVD commentary that the episode was moved to later in the season, but if the production code means anything, it seems that the episode was going to air as the fourth episode after Intro to Film. I think Abed sort of confirms this in the cold open when he says they leaned on him in last week's episode, Intro to Film having a very Abed-centric plot. The actual episode that aired the previous week, Advanced Criminal Law, had Abed pretending to be an alien to mess with Troy, which doesn't fit the line as well. Abed says that he'll lay low in this one. Abed also brings up Pierce and Troy's bonding over their mutual adolescence, which may come off as a bit odd since the pair hasn't had much interaction in the last couple of episodes. In previous episodes, I've talked about how the initial direction seemed to pair Troy and Pierce up as a duo, but this gets semi-abandoned after seeing how well Donald Glover and Danny Pudi work together. If you take the MST3K mantra about these things, then the out-of-order airing doesn't really take anything away from the arc of the season. It can even be rewarding. The audience has gotten some glimpses of Annie's obvious crush on Troy, but this episode examines this relationship much further. I think it actually works out better that we got to see this build up over a longer period of time, so it means more to the audience when Annie and Troy's relationship is addressed. Speaking of Troy, this might be the first episode where Donald Glover really gets to work his magic. The episode is based around the Dean recruiting Troy to play on Greendale's football team. Troy, as we know, was a star quarterback in high school and had plans on playing college ball at a high level until he suffered a knee injury attempting a keg flip, seemingly ending those plans. Troy turns down the offer at first, but then changes his mind after Jeff convinces him that he belongs on the football field. The only reason Jeff does this to begin with is because he made a deal with the Dean that pictures of him appearing in Greendale Community College promotional material would not be released, potentially harming his future career options. I mean, who would want to hire a lawyer with a degree from this school? This upsets Annie, who after years of pining over Troy in high school, was finally getting close to him and knows she will lose that if Troy goes back to being a jock. Annie finds out it was Jeff that got Troy to join the football team and confronts him, calling Jeff selfish for putting his needs above what she thinks is best for Troy. Jeff in turn points out Annie is being selfish herself for only wanting Troy all to herself. Meanwhile, Britta and Shirley are getting to know each other after Britta offends Shirley by turning down her offer to go to the ladies' room together. Britta tries to make it up to her by joining her at the next opportunity, but just makes things worse when she proves to be an overly opinionated and horrible listener. The first couple of episodes built Britta up to be this amazing person, but little by little we're starting to see that she might actually be the worst. It's just another unforeseen benefit of this episode airing later than scheduled, as we've already seen some more minor flaws in her character, but this explains her in a little more detail. It turns out she was never very good at connecting with other women. Her rejection of mainstream norms and tendency to talk down to people always came off as too abrasive for ladies' room conversation. I'll have to take the character's word on that for now, as I'm not particularly familiar with women's washroom etiquette. Meanwhile, Pierce and Dean Pelton are designing a new mascot for the Greendale human beings. This little plotline serves us up a bit of social commentary as the Dean attempts to create a human being mascot devoid of any gender or racial identity. I think Jeff's line sums it up best when he says, "I think not being racist is the new racism." The idea being maybe that avoiding stereotypes can be almost as problematic as the stereotypes themselves. In order to avoid stereotypes, you would first need to identify those stereotypes, which in turn gives credibility to the bigoted stereotypes that you were trying to avoid in the first place. This perpetuates the kind of casual racism we see in the Pierce character throughout the series. The end result is a gray human-like blob of a mascot that represents nothing rather than everything. In fact, this episode has a few lines here and there that might be considered problematic, but it's covered up in the humor. Are there problematic issues in this episode? Tell me what you think in the comments. Plots collide when Annie asks to speak with Shirley in the ladies' room after her confrontation with Jeff, and she sends Britta in her place to work on her relationship skills. Britta uses the lessons she's learned to actually listen to Annie's problems. She ends up giving Annie some good advice, winning Shirley's approval as a good bathroom buddy. It turns out that Annie's argument with Jeff did prompt him to have a change of heart, and he goes to tell Troy that he doesn't need football. Troy this time gives Jeff a bit of a lesson when he confesses that he injured himself on purpose due to the pressure of college scouts coming to watch him play. This time, Troy's accepted the fact that there isn't any pressure to play here, mainly because the team is so bad that there isn't any expectations to begin with. He tells Jeff to accept where he is, even if that place is Greendale. Annie comes to the pep rally in support of Troy, and meeting Jeff, they apologize to each other, admitting they were both wrong for trying to control Troy. Annie and Jeff walk into the pep rally arm in arm to the Violent Femmes song, Please Do Not Go, but not before their first instance of Jeff referring to Annie as my lady, and Annie responding with my lord. This, of course, would be the beginning of a very complicated relationship between the two characters as the series progresses, but we will be exploring that in episodes to come. Abed keeps his promise, and he lays low in this week's episode. Watching football, Feminism and You in the context of knowing the series as a whole is a lot different than watching it for the first time. Like other early episodes of Community, it is densely packed and ended with a somewhat hasty conclusion. As far as laughs go, it might not be the funniest episode. There are some good laughs, though, especially when it comes to Troy's arrogant nature after agreeing to play football. Watching the episode, it appears on the surface that not much has happened. After this episode, there isn't even a mention of Troy actually playing football for Greendale. When it comes to the arc of the season, however, I think the audience will find in retrospect that this episode did a really good job of explaining these characters in more detail. This most likely had to do with the episode being pushed to later in the schedule, and perhaps we should have gotten this character development earlier in the series, but that doesn't take away from the show as a whole. Community is so focused on its characters that the audience already had a solid feeling about who these characters are and what their motivations were. This episode just helped to solidify those feelings even further. As always, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future videos. If you really don't want to miss out, click on that little bell icon as well. So long, YouTube, and until next time, this has been Just Another Guy Talking About Stuff. Witty, sign-off, catchphrase.